We get off the highway from the east side and we enter Owningville Square. Owningville was probably originally a mill village along the Woonasquatucket River. It has mills like crazy, including what used to be the biggest textile mill in the world. Always been a magnet for immigrants because there were a lot of jobs where you didn't need to speak English and people could get off the boat and go to work. In Owningville, the language you might hear most on the streets is Spanish, but it also has a lot of progressive organizations that have done excellent work. And you can't have a mill village without a river. The Woonasquatucket River powered Owningville. And like all old industrial rivers, it used to be a sewer, so you've got to watch out for bacterial infections. It also used to be the center of textiles, chemicals, and metal, all of which leave long-standing toxic legacies in the water and surrounding community. So that's something you should be looking at for wherever you go. But there you got a picture of the Greenway, and that's the real issue. The Greenway, the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council, they have been really helping Owningville take charge of itself and redevelop. The bike path has been a big deal. The managing of the stormwater has been a big deal. The river rangers and the green teams have been a big deal. And they've all really contributed to Owningville moving forward. We're heading up Manton Avenue. All of the area you see used to be mills. It now looks like just about any other commercial strip in America in a relatively low-income neighborhood. Owningville is the lowest income neighborhood in Providence and may be the lowest income zip code in the state, with the possible exception of Central Falls. A couple blocks up, the Atlantic Mills used to be the biggest textile mill in the world when it was first built. It's no longer a textile mill. It's now a conglomerate of flea markets, furniture stores, recycling centers. You name it, it's there, but it is nothing like what it used to be. I mean, it was a place that employed hundreds of new immigrants and helped them get started in this country. Though I'm not sure I would have liked its toxic effect on the river. Just north of the Atlantic Mill is Aleppo Street. Aleppo takes you down to Riverside Park. It is a great park. It used to be a mill that burned. It was a Superfund site. Now it's a park. It is a greenway. It is a place to watch the river. There are gardens. It's turned into a pretty amazing place. It's even got great rainwater catchment systems to prevent runoff going into the river. That place is a nonprofit arts center. This is some classic New England mill village housing. Owningville doesn't have much of it. Wanscook has more. But, the two families right there on the main street, low, some of them look like they've been bought and they're getting refurbished. The real reason behind such a good housing efforts in Owningville is One Neighborhood Builders. They are a great group. They're doing all kinds of innovative stuff, helping people with rentals, helping people with home ownership, everything you need, classes, whatever it takes to help people use real estate to get out of poverty. One Neighborhood Builders is a community development corporation, an invention of the government and this Ford Foundation years ago to do housing. This is what a more typical street looks like. William DeBate Elementary School, a real community institution, but one that suffers a lot because 30 to 40% of the kids each year move so that they don't finish the year in the same classroom they began. Does not help with their education. One Neighborhood Builders connected with the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council, and they put in rainwater systems to manage the runoff from their new developments. That swale can catch a lot of water and slowly release it into the ground so that it doesn't pollute the river. The closed church was St. Teresa's. The priest was Father Ray Tatro, a real progressive place and a real community institution that the Catholic Church closed down, probably because they couldn't afford to keep it open. We have some trees here, but Owningville is definitely deficient in trees, and as we know, places without trees are hotter and more dangerous. And of course, in Providence and many places, the more money you have, the more likely you are to live in a neighborhood with trees. I was glad it was early in the morning, because by the middle of the day it would have been too hot to make this trek. We've arrived at the corner of Manton and Atwells. We're going to be turning to go back up Atwells instead of continuing on Manton. We'll be heading mostly east. We'll go over Mount Pleasant, and then we'll go up onto Federal Hill before coming almost to downtown. You'll notice in this little commercial district, if you ever go through, when the new community comes, they start with food stores, they start with restaurants, because that's where people meet and they all have to eat. When we talk about food swamps, one of the things we can talk about is liquor stores. Lower income neighborhoods always have liquor stores, even when they don't have any good food. Providence is blessed in that most cities there is one country of origin for most of the new Hispanic immigrants. Providence, while there are probably more people from the Dominican Republic than anywhere else, has Colombians, Nicaraguans, Brazilians, Venezuelans, Mexicans, everywhere that they would be coming from, they are here. And we are happy to have them. Continuing up the hill, up Mount Pleasant, looking back towards Manton Avenue, triple-deckers seem to dominate. Looking north at the corner of Mount Pleasant and Atwells, you've got Mexican food, you've got Miami food, you've got La Antigua. Mount Pleasant Avenue follows the ridgeline all the way up to the north end of the city, going right past Rhode Island College. Couple more blocks, we're heading down the hill, down towards the valley, and we've got triple-deckers lining the street. Get past some of those trees looking down towards the valley. From this height, you can see downtown and the towers. So you've got the Industrial Bank, you've got the Omni Hotel. You're looking across the valley of the Woonasquatucket River. At the corner of Atwells and Valley, you've got a little reminder of where Providence comes from. Polishes and Jewelers Supply Corporation. Tools and supplies for the jewelry industry. This was an area that used to have lots of mills. This is now Eagle Square with grocery stores, offices, sneaker stores. But that whole thing was filled with mill buildings. It was a place of huge employment, even if it didn't pay well. Powered by the Woonasquatucket River. I'm facing upstream on the river. The river is running towards me, going downstream. It's a little green oasis. It probably wasn't 100 years ago. There were mill buildings right to its edge. This is the last waterfall before you hit the tidewater. So this is the last place you would have had mills running strictly on water power. But it would have been very convenient for hopping a boat and sending your stuff around the world. After years of people thinking about vertical and urban farming, Gotham Greens has opened this new greenhouse in a former industrial space, and they're growing lettuce. I can't say I've tried their lettuce, but I haven't heard bad things about them, so hopefully they'll be a good corporate neighbor. There's been nothing on this site working for at least 20 years. Formerly, it was a General Electric light bulb factory, and I guess they're refurbishing the building. You do the greenhouse first so you can grow crops, and once that's established, set up your offices. In a housing deficient city like Providence, whenever there's development like this and gentrification, you always wonder who's going to be displaced. Crossing the 610 connector, going back up the hill, heading to Federal Hill. Federal Hill used to be the center of the Italian population, but no longer. Now it is a cultural artifact, a place of Italian culture in a community that is very little Italian. It is, Hispanic, African, Asian, all the places that immigrants come from, they live up on Federal Hill. And so the Italians come for the weekend and, buy in the Italian-themed shops like bread and beer and wine and dine. But it's not an Italian neighborhood anymore. It's kind of a Potemkin village. The Pasquale Square, where all the tourists go to eat. It's a pretty nice place, open air plaza. It's been open air for years, so I guess when the pandemic hit, they were pretty much ready. It's always amazing how much space in a city is used for parking lots. All those places used to have buildings. Providence was a city of 250,000, dropped down to 150,000. It's about 180,000 now. All that space that, could be used for housing, for jobs, it's used for parking because we pay attention to the mobile beast. Not far from this area, when Federal Hill was an actual Italian neighborhood, the New England Mafia was headquartered here. Raymond Patriarca had a laundromat, one of those great businesses for laundering money. We're almost done with Federal Hill. Providence has more of these elderly high-rises than any other place in America because when the U.S. Congress was funding these things, Ferdy St. Germain from Woonsocket was the congressional representative. He was the chair of the banking committee, so Providence got its share. Now you're looking at the world-famous pine nut that gives you the entrance to Federal Hill from the city. People think it's a pineapple, but it's actually a pine tree's nut, very much like a pinon pine from the southwest. The bridge across I-95 is all that separates Federal Hill from downtown and down city. Corner of Atwell's, the Service Road, and I-95. And what I was thinking about while looking at the mall was how much housing was ripped out of here in order to build the interstate. They did this in just about every city in America. I lived in the Bronx, and the Cross Bronx Expressway tore the heart out of my neighborhood. It made a lot of difference, and it was really what led homelessness to become a major phenomena in the cities. We're facing the other way, and we're a block further down the road. We're standing at the corner of Broadway and the Service Road, looking at the interstate, looking at the big new buildings downtown. We're looking at the public safety complex. The building was a monument to our former and highly criminal mayor, Buddy Cianci. That glass is supposed to look like a ship's prow. It's always the rich criminals who seem to support the police the most and give them what they want. More views of the interstate, thinking about all the houses and all the fabric of the city that was ripped out to make further accommodations for the automobile. So it is rather ironic, or maybe just sick, that the communities that have the highest asthma rates in Providence are right along the interstate and, of course, along the port. We're going to look at the seal of the city of Providence on the public safety complex. If we're lucky, we'll be able to read the year that Providence was founded, 1636, and the year it was incorporated, 1832. And we will remember that the police department was started to be able to suppress race riots and keep the people of color, the African Americans and the indigenous, in their place. And that's why we have racist police departments to this day. One further block, we're at the corner of Westminster and the Service Road, actually these days called John Partington Avenue, after a former police chief. This is basically looking towards downtown. We're going to flip it around. We're going to look towards the West End. And this is where we're going to end today. We'll pick up with the next section of this tour as we go through the West End.